Really, a lot of people don't understand that in the military, one of the things that you do as a leader is you actually coach the future leader.
Hey there, it's Joanne Leasure with another episode of Show You the Business. In this episode, we talk with Mick, DeBee, the owner of Rally Point Consulting and Training. For over 25 years, Mick has helped leaders in organizations retain their top team members and increase the quality of their production. And he does this in the food and beverage industry. So let's listen in on how he gets this done. All right, let's go.
Well, I wanted to do this podcast with you because of your background and also because of the fact that you are into business consulting. And I thought that was, a nice alignment with, who I speak to and, who, generally asks me questions and possibly be able to find people who need you. So can you, with this podcast, and let me just introduce you and make sure I say your name correct. So we're talking to Mick I'm sorry, to say your last name, Mick.
DeBee, Mick DeBee.
DeBee. Thank you. I thought there were more syllables in there.
No, they kept it simple. They gave me an easy name to remember and kept it simple.
Awesome. So we're talking to Mick DeBee. And Mick, can you tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose to become a consultant and leadership coach?
Yeah, so I really started out my adult life in the U.S. military. So I was in the military for 20 years. And, really a lot of people don't understand that in the military, one of the things that you do as a leader is you actually coach the future leaders. And so it's ingrained into you that you're coaching the next generation of leaders. So you develop that desire to coach leaders in the first place, So I did that for, 20 years in the military. And then after I retired, a little bit about my background and I'll explain a little bit, later, but, I worked for a production supervisor as a production supervisor for the Hormel Corporation, a food and beverage manufacturer, where they're a food manufacturer. And so I did that for a few years, and then I went into teaching for a little bit. And when I went into teaching, I went back to college to get my master's in industrial and organizational psychology. That's a long way up. I know everybody does that. Industrial organizational psychology is basically the study of work and why we work and how we work better. And so. After I finished that master's degree, after I finished my graduate degree, I went into just contract work and, working for different organizations, just kind of independently and just did contract work for about a year. And then I got hired on with a consulting company, consulting and training company. And so that's when I really first started being introduced to the world of a consultant. And they were a consulting and training company, and I have a training background as well from the military as well.
Gotcha.
And then I went and worked for Saudi Aramco as a leadership development advisor, and they have a leadership development division. They're the state oil company in Saudi Arabia. I went and worked for them for about 7 years up until 2020, and so. Like I said, so through my background and what I did a lot in my life, I really had a passion for, helping leaders and being able to go in and help organizations, get the most out of themselves. That's what it's all about, is an organization getting the most out of themselves. So.
Absolutely. I have to say that, my core business, as you know, is accounting and bookkeeping. And one of the things that I find with business owners, including myself at sometimes, is that we don't have systems. And that's really what kills us. And it's really what puts certain people out of business, is not having a system and just kind of taking everything on and not knowing exactly where to place things and that kind of thing. And I would imagine that your type of consulting, and tell me if I'm wrong, but your type of consulting would help people get on a good track with systems.
So yeah, that's a great point you bring up. It's one of the things, that I've really started focusing on is helping people with their quality management system, their quality management programs. And the reason, and one of the things I stress, and your husband and I are mutual acquaintances, so he may have told you I talk about this probably too much as far as people are concerned. But I talk about having your mission, vision, and value statement and having those aligned and how important they are. And a lot of times businesses kind of fail to see that. Even small businesses, it's important. And it's just important to know where you're going. I always like quoting Yogi Berra, because Yogi Berra said, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. And so that's just a way of saying, hey, know where you're going. And when you have your mission, vision, and value statement set, and they're aligned, and you have a good quality management program, a lot of the things that that businesses struggle with really become minor because they have the systems in place to already address the issues. They've already, it's really pre-planning for the challenges that you'll face. So yeah.
Right.
And that is one of the things that I definitely sit down with businesses and help them, get a better focus on.
Okay. Now your business is called Rally Point Consulting and Training.
Right.
Okay. What inspired you to create that?
So Rally Point Consulting and Training, actually we started out as Rally Point International. Mm-hmm. And as I was leaving Aramco, I left Aramco in 2020 just due to downsizing, but I really found myself in a good position just financially and with the experience and expertise I had in my background to really just go into an independent mode. And so Rally Point Consulting and Training, as I said, we started out as Rally Point International. I had a few other colleagues who were interested in joining me at the time, but they had other commitments and they couldn't withstand the time frame of us ramping up the business. So they so they had to go on and do other things, which was fine. And so we took a look at things and we said, let's really refocus and tell people what we're about, because Rally Point International it was a bit vague. And so we renamed ourselves to Rally Point Consulting and Training. And so, the reason that I wanted to start a consulting business, I kind of already mentioned it a little bit, but I really just have a passion for helping organizations. There's so many organizations that some of them are really dysfunctional or toxic, but some of them they just can't seem to put it all together. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong just every once, getting somebody from the outside with a different set of eyes and, kind of helping them out. So I really have a passion for helping organizations and leaders, get to the get to their optimum level of performance, because, it makes just for a better work environment for everybody, really. And I talk to people about this all the time. I say, you spend a third of your life at work. There's no way you should be miserable. And some people go to work miserable every day. There's no reason you should be miserable a third of your life. And so if we can make better work environments and help leaders out to make those environments, create those environments, that's what my mission is to really help them out. So
that I can absolutely see that. I used to be an employee before I started my own business myself, and I had some toxic situations where it just got to the point that, that I just had to leave those situations. And I do wish that leadership would have stepped in more. It's kind of like sometimes you have places where I feel as though they don't necessarily value their employees. And if they could show some value, like, so some form of value to those employees, you'd be surprised at what just a little bit would actually do. It goes such a long way with an employee, because those are the ones who are doing the work for you. Those are the ones who are front facing, your clients. So why wouldn't you want to make sure that they are happy and they're not in a miserable environment? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, Joanne, as you say that, I really recognize that as an issue, and so there's a few things. One is, and I'll just share this with you real briefly. I'm a very well-traveled individual, and so I say that to lead into I was in Amman Airport in Jordan, and I was flying back to. I was living in Saudi Arabia at the time, and I was flying back there, and I was looking for something to read, to just something light on the trip back. And I looked, and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed all these books out of the corner of my eye. And I looked over there, and there was just these massive amounts of books on leadership, all kinds of different things. And I thought to myself, I think that's one of the things that we're missing, is that we're making leadership too hard. And leadership should never be hard. It should be challenging, because leadership is a challenging role, but it shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't, And so I really thought, well, how do we break this down to the basics? How can I, as a leader, what can I just do on a daily basis that's going to, create that environment? And that's when I came up with the TLC leadership model: the trust, loyalty, and commitment. And I talk about building those three things within your organization. And we use the trust model I developed for building trust. It was the DeBee trust model. I talk about 360 loyalty, because oftentimes companies think that when I say loyalty, that means employee loyalty to the company, which is part of it, but it's about being loyal, operating as a loyal organization. And, that's with our clients, that's with our peers, our supervisors, that's with everybody. And then that final component of commitment, people need to know that companies are committed to them. I just read an article today where Tyson Foods is laying off 1,700 people. And, so I read into the article because I wanted to see what level this is. Tyson Foods is a huge, huge corporation. So I said, so what's their level of commitment to these people? Because are they just hanging them out to dry? But no, Tyson Foods is doing the right thing. They're offering them positions in other places. They're offering them, to pay for their move, and so they're finding them positions in other places, so that and that's part of commitment, so they know that the company's trying to take care of them, so
right.
So anyways, I say that to say that's how the TLC leadership model came about, was that here's the three things you need to do if you want to create a great environment. Here's what you need to do. So, and it's challenging, but it shouldn't be, like I said, it shouldn't be hard. So,
you're absolutely right. The more I think about it, because I've been in leadership positions too. And, one of the things that I would always try to do is try to empower other people to do what they do. Bring to me your creative piece of you, and own this, yeah. So I just feel like I feel like if you could empower people to do what they do best, that you're always, or you most of the time, are going to get the best from them.
Yeah, and so to that point, that's a great point you bring up. And I don't want to get completely off the track here, but that empowering people is part of building trust. And it's about showing respect to people. And what leaders don't understand is, when I empower people, I'm showing people respect, because I'm showing I respect their abilities. I respect what they bring to the organization. Right. And, when I do talk to leaders about, just that element of respect, a lot of times when I ask them, how do you show respect? Well, I respect them as a person. Okay, define that. But empowering people, engaging people, that's where you really show respect, because you show them that you appreciate them and you appreciate what they bring to the company. That's a great point, Joanne.
Absolutely. Great. Well, I know you have something called the R4 process. So I'm intrigued. Can you explain more about it and why it's such an important part of your consulting services?
Yeah. So when I started I've worked for consulting firms, as I said before. And so one of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to approach it a little different. And so I always use the analogy of a doctor and a patient. And so this is, so when you go see a doctor, they're gonna ask you what your symptoms are. They're gonna run some tests. They're gonna analyze the results of that. They're gonna make their recommendations, and then for recovery, and then maybe conduct a checkup or a follow-up in a few months to see how you're doing. And so that's my goal as a consultant, is to make the patient better, to help the organization get to the point. Because let's face it, if you're going to a doctor every week for something, you need to find a new doctor. Is kind of my, right?
Yeah.
So the R4 approach really helps us do that, and it really stems from my military background. Rally Point itself actually stems from my military background. So a rally point, when we used to run missions and go on missions, a rally point was a place where we could fall back to or go to that was a safe place for us to go. Mm-hmm. So that we knew we could regroup, reassess, realign, and then re-engage. Right. And that's what the R4 process is about. It's, it gives organizations, a chance to regroup. And so when we regroup, we just take an inventory of what we have. Sometimes consulting firms just go in and automatically they want to start assessing this and assessing that. Mm. I like to, let's regroup and see what we have in place already. Because sometimes it's just as easy as, oh, you're missing this component, just develop this component. And it's an easy fix. And sometimes it's not. So that regroup phase is really important, to take an inventory and just of what everybody has.
Right.
And then the reassess phase is we start looking at those policies, those processes, and those procedures that we have in place, and see how they're working. And so that we take that time to reassess, and that's that second R. Right. And that third R of realign is when we start putting maybe new policies in place, or we conduct some workshops, or we change a procedure, the way we're doing something. And so that helps us realign our organization to where we want to go as far as reaching our goal. And then the re-engage phase was one that was really important to me as I started to develop this. So when I worked for a consulting firm before, we would do the reassess and then the realign, and then we were gone. And the client was just left out there hanging. And I thought, to me, it takes, and I know this just from my experience from, change management, and it takes about 90 to 120 days for any changes you're going to make within an organization to really start to show effect. So if you start implementing new policies or procedures, you're probably not going to see any consistent changes for about 90 to 120 days. So what I want to, what I encourage organizations to do is, and to let the consultant come back in at 90, 120 days and do another assessment and just see how are things going. Because it may be just like with your doctor, right? Just like with your doctor, maybe the prescription that he's giving you, maybe it needs a little adjustment, And so that re-engage phase was really, really important for me, as I thought about how Rally Point would function. And so that's the R4 process, and why I think it's so impactful and why it's so important.
Wow. And you seem to have thought out, and I realize this is your business, so you've thought out these processes to match what's really happening in the world. I commend you on that for sure. This is very realistic on what's really going on in businesses. Now, I do know that you do focus your consulting business on manufacturing, on the manufacturing industry, and that you specialize in consulting with food and beverage manufacturing. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so one of the things I really started to look for is, because I have such a diverse background in the areas that I've worked, it was, when I first started out, I wanted to be all things to all people, and you can't be. You can be, but it's then it becomes diluted. And so I thought, I wanted to go in, I wanted to help in organizations that I really had an expertise in, something that I had done personally, something that I had worked at personally. And though I have a lot of time with the oil and gas industry, and of course my military background, I really looked at that, at manufacturing, and specifically food and beverage manufacturing. And that was because I think that it might be an industry that gets overlooked as far as people specializing in assisting them. And I understand, I understand the challenges that an operations leader, really faces in the manufacturing world. It's a manufacturer or a food and beverage manufacturing brings a consultant in. It's nice if that consultant already understands that, hey, they're going to have 2 to 3 shifts. That's how they're going to operate. They're going to have 2 and maybe 3 shifts. And those shifts are different. Day shift and night shift, those are different. And the challenges are different. And you talk to anybody who's been in production on a night shift, they'll tell you, oh, it's a different animal. It is definitely a different animal. And so, there's other challenges that they face, that a consultant with my background can come in and really, they can talk to me, and I'm going to immediately be able to understand what their frustration or their challenges might be. Like their quality assurance is a big thing, because I would tell you the number one concern that a food and beverage manufacturer has, just like pharmaceutical really, is for contaminated product to get out, because that is, that's like, I don't want to say the kiss of death, but it's definitely hard to overcome when something like that happens. So there's quality control issues, there's supply chain issues, there's maintenance issues, and then plus they're dealing with a high turnover rate. A lot of these manufacturers in food and beverage, definitely they deal with a high turnover rate. So I wanted to be that resource that they could turn to, that have firsthand experience in those types of challenges, and to be somebody who really was going to be there to assist them to, get healthy. Like I said, back to the patient analogy, to get healthy. And as far as the, other industries, I can help businesses from a lot of industries, but, I know that I have a passion for manufacturing, and specifically the food and beverage manufacturing industry. So, that's where my passion is, but yeah, I can help other businesses as well.
That's great. I would go outside the box a little bit, color outside the lines. You mentioned about the high turnover rate that, the manufacturers have. Can you get a little bit in detail of why do you think there is a high turnover? What is it about that type of position?
Well, one, it's demanding. It is demanding. The other thing is too, is it can become a bit monotonous, and it monotonous and repetitive at the same time. And so, when you think about it, most manufacturers work at least 6 days a week. Sometimes they're broken down so they can work, they work all week long. And, I remember it was like my plant manager, expressed to me when I first became a production supervisor. He said, we pay a lot for this equipment and we're going to get the most we can out of it. And that was, he was, and so that was why we ran so much. But it's hard on people too. I mean, statistically, they've done studies where, people who work predominantly on night shifts actually have higher health issues, or more health issues than those who work on day shifts. And so it's hard on the body, and so people tend to maybe look for other things in life, especially as they start to get older. And I think that's contributes to the high turnover rate. It is a demanding lifestyle.
Right, right.
Mm.
In my, in the way I speak or the way I think when I'm thinking about clients and why they come to us, and they speak such regular language, I would imagine a client would come to you and say, hey, Mick, these guys, I'm having this issue where I can't seem to keep people in their position. Can you give me a tip or a trick to make people want to stay despite the fact that, some of the conditions that you might have mentioned?
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to creating that right work culture. Right now, I'm in the process of working on a book about my experiences with the Hormel Corporation. I worked at a small plant called Part 10 Foods, and even when I left because it wasn't a good person job fit. I just I had other things that I needed to do in my life, but the plant managers that I had there, they made the environment such a place that you didn't want to leave. You didn't care if you worked 6 and 7 days a week. Because the environment was such that it was like your family, and a guy named Steve Weirs and Al Liebram, both those guys really inspired me to really talk about creating this highly harmonious organization and using the TLC leadership model to do that. Right. And so I think I really do, when you really establish an organization that has trust, loyalty, and commitment as its foundation, you'll see those turnover rates decrease. You'll see your absenteeism decrease, because it all comes together as the organization trying to move forward and trying to be productive. A lot of it goes back to what you said too. When you show respect, when you empower your people, they don't feel like they're just an employee. They feel like a team member. They feel like they're contributing. They're important. And I posted something just recently that everybody in the organization is important, and it's a leader's job to let them know they are. And that really is. And when you do things like that, people are reluctant to go somewhere else. They might not even want, they're reluctant to go somewhere else because they know they're not going to find what they have there. And sometimes they have to, because they have to, they're moving, like so that's what I would, that's the tip that I would give them. Build that organization of trust, loyalty, and commitment, and see it turn around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So your company also provides coaching and training services. Can you speak about those?
Yeah. So I've talked a lot about the TLC leadership already, and so we have several leadership and leadership team courses and programs that really focus on teaching those how to implement those, developing leaders so that they know how to develop those and then become comfortable with those. We have, like I said, we have different courses and programs. Some of the programs we have coaching incorporated into the program itself. So they'll go through that. The leaders will go through that coaching as part of the program. Some of them are just standalone workshops. We also have, and so that's our, that's really kind of a lot of our package. And right now we have probably about 5 different workshops that are around the TLC leadership model that we can offer. And they range anywhere from 2.5 hours to, over, a few weeks to independent programs that could go several months or a few months. And then we also have a quality management workshop, and it's based on another model that I created. We talked about quality, we talked about quality management, and we developed a workshop about the Grippy model, which is, helps people understand, focus on developing good goals, understanding their roles and responsibilities, putting in the proper policies, procedures and processes, and then, the individual behavior. How do we deal with individual behavior? We're currently working on a performance management program called Employee Empowered Performance Management, where it really puts performance management not just on the leader's shoulders, because I know as a leader, that's the way it always seems, is I have to get my people to perform. But we're in the process of developing an employee empowered performance management. I developed one when I worked for Saudi Aramco, something similar. And so those, and of course we can do customized classes too, if organizations want something on delegation or effective communication, we have the ability to design those as well. And then our coaching, we have coaching at all levels. If I were to say where our sweet spot was, it'd probably be that middle manager. Okay. We do executive coaching, but that mid to executive coaching is probably our sweet spot. And we also could do frontline coaching as well, for frontline leaders if an organization really needed that. But wow. I would definitely say our sweet spot's that mid to executive level coaching. So
that's great. You have a full arsenal of training and coaching. I love that.
Well, the thing is, Joanne, is I'm an old guy, so I've got a lot of experience.
Got a lot to offer.
I got a lot to offer because you've been around this many years. You've seen a lot and you've done a lot. So
gotcha. That's perfect. All right. So how does somebody schedule an appointment with you to discuss your services?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, as we were realigning ourselves, we're still trying to get our website to where it reflects what we're doing right now. So we're kind of at a stall at the moment on that. But if somebody wanted to reach out to me and schedule just a chat, a 20, 30 minute, hey, I'd like to talk to you. They can reach me at mdebee@rpict.com, or they can reach me at mdebee62@gmail.com. They can give me a call at 713-202-1867. That's our business line. And they can call me personally. Just say, hey, Mick, I want to have a cup of coffee with you because I'd like to talk with you. And then call my personal line at 281-923-3827. So
that's awesome. And I recognize those Texas area codes.
You know that. That's H-Town, baby. H-Town right there.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're definitely going to post your contact information in the chat. And really thank you for having this conversation. I think that everybody could use, especially in the corporate world, first off, but definitely in the small business world, use your type of training and coaching to just, we need to build up our workforce, and, we need to keep people so that we can build up the workforce. You got to stick around so that I could teach you something else.
Yeah.
So you're very, very useful. I could definitely see a lot of people coming to you. So remember, I'm a 10X certified coach myself, and I do a lot of profit coaching, but Grant Cardone always says, to be great and make it a 10X day. So I wanted to make sure I put that in there.
All right.
Thanks for coming
I appreciate it. Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So.
All right. Perfect. All right. Talk to you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is Joanne Leasure signing off. I am your profit coach, and you were watching and listening to Show You the Business. All right. Until next time, make it a 10X day.